if you were given a chance by the government of India to guide them, okay, or give them the very best objectives that may be more realistic or of getting accomplished in the next 5 years, in the current geopolitical scenario, also considering the political pressures and challenges they face both internally and externally, what would that advice be? Well, first of all, I am nobody to advise the government of India. They are very wise people, and we have a very wise leader, the prime minister, and so on. But if I had to, let's say, give some kind of guidance and give them some objectives that what are the priorities the nation should have the next 5 years, let's say, given the current geopolitical climate, what would I say? Look, the problems we face from the Indian perspective are internal as well as external. And if you want to be strong externally, geopolitically, you have to strengthen yourself internally as well. So, first of all, what India needs to have, it is high time we need to have this, is a war on corruption. Corruption is a major bane for India. It is what destroys India's potential. And it is something that has permeated every level of governance in this country, except for hopefully, most likely, the very top, right? But everywhere else, you have corruption everywhere. The whole system runs on corruption. There needs to be a war on corruption. It will save so much of India's hard-earned money. It will ease everything up. It wastes so much of India's potential. We need to have a war on corruption, and that will automatically give you much better ease of doing business. Okay, that's number one. That's an internal thing. Secondly, once again, internal, I would say India needs to end reservations and end this culture of giving freebies to people to random people based on what sort of vote bank they represent. That's another thing that really hampers India's potential, hampers India's growth, and destroys India's potential. Reservations, the lack of merit, and this culture of giving freebies, this yojana and that yojana, and this ladli yojana and that ladli yojana, waste of India's taxpayer resources. Okay, that's number two. What would I say? Number three, India needs to focus on economic growth. Economic growth, which means we need to become a manufacturing power, a major manufacturing power, and we need to focus on exports. I don't care what we manufacture. Manufacture everything. Manufacture pins, manufacture cups, manufacture ball bearings, manufacture everything from top to bottom, from the lowest level of complexity to the highest level of complexity. Manufacturing needs to happen. India needs to become a manufacturing power, and it will happen only if we end this. If we have a war on corruption, we end corruption and have much better ease of doing business. Next, we need to continue growing our, ramping up our infrastructure. Roads, railways, airports, bridges, whatever. We are infrastructure poor. Much of our infrastructure is antiquated and crumbling. We need to seriously build infrastructure, and that will generate a tremendous amount of employment as well. It will help the economy as well. So infrastructure is something we need to keep focusing on. When it comes to education, it's a long term problem. India's education system is garbage. It's rotten. And the so-called new education policy does nothing to address the real core issues, the fundamental defects in the education system. Okay, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. That's what they've done. But yeah, I mean, reforming the education system will take at least a couple of decades. So what would I say we need to do in the next 5 years? One very simple thing we can do immediately is that the government should decree that degrees are optional. Make degrees optional and allow companies to hire based purely on your skills. You may or may not have a degree, you may not have a college degree, you may not have a 10 standard degree, doesn't matter. If you have the skills, then you should be hired. So you should be allowed to hire whether or not a candidate has a degree or not, just based on their skills. So that's something the government can do right now. But yeah, it would kind of destroy the education sector. I mean, the people who leech off the education sector, there's a tremendous amount of corruption there as well. But that's something that can happen, and that would really give wings to a lot of people. Next, we need to go all in on high technology, semiconductors, robotics, drones, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of that. And it's not enough to have the greatest amount of adoption in the world of these technologies. We don't want to adopt what others are doing. We want to lead. We have leaders who extol the fact that we are among the largest adopters of artificial intelligence. But who are the guys who are dishing out the AI systems? It's not us. So we need to become leaders. It's not enough to merely adopt. We need to lead. Then we need Atmanirbharta, indigenization of the arms industry. Very important, very important. Then obviously we need to focus on jet engines and fighter aircraft. We already spoke about drones. Drones are a great defensive measure and a limited offensive measure as well. Shallow depth offensive measure, tremendous. You can overwhelm an enemy with drones. But we also need to focus on jet engines. We need to anyhow acquire a high quality jet engine, buy, beg, borrow, steal, I don't care. And we need to have our own fighter aircraft of various kinds. So that there is that. Then space exploration. We need to double down on space exploration. ISRO needs to be given much more funding and the leeway to undertake ambitious projects, not incremental, small, little changes. Real ambitious projects. That's what ISRO needs to do. I mean, why do we are trying to develop a rocket that is twice as powerful as the previous one? Why not develop a rocket that's 20 times more powerful? We have the ability to do that, but no, we don't have the ambition. I'm sure the scientists and engineers at ISRO have the ambition, but it's the political leaders who don't have it. So we need to focus on space exploration. We need to focus on building capabilities at scale. At scale. So once we demonstrate a certain capability, we need to start executing and using it at scale. Not once in 7 years. Okay, we went to Mars in 2000 whatever. Now we will wait 20 years to go back to Mars. No, send one spacecraft to Mars every year, and a better spacecraft every year. Of course, it costs money, but it's not a whole lot of money. And why can't we have an Indian Starlink? Hmm? Why do we need a foreign Starlink to beam the internet into India? Why can't we have our own constellation, our own Starlink? So we need to be ambitious. I don't see the ambition in the Indian political class, the leadership, unfortunately. And lastly, I would say that the West, we know, now we're talking geopolitics, pure geopolitics. The West uses religion as a geopolitical tool of interfering in our country. We need to end that. We need to ban that. And the government has been very defensive about this. We're doing nothing essentially about this. The West uses religion as a geopolitical tool and we're seeing its effects everywhere. That needs to end. So these are the things I would say India needs to focus on. Obviously, it's very easy to give out a list and say that do this. It's much more difficult to execute, implement all this. But yes, that's why leaders exist. That's why we vote them to power. And we give them the resources of the entire country. Get this done. So this is what I would say India needs to do and India's leadership needs to do in the next 5 years. 4.5 years. Half a year is gone, roughly. So yeah. So good question by Slip Disc Check.